Hey everyone, Wellness Chef Jeremy Capone here from the Elixir Kitchen.
And I'm Stephanie Gladman, the registered dietitian. And welcome from our own homes. We're going to be cooking a few recipes today. One of them is healthy snacks or items that you might choose for breakfast. So lately I've been getting lots of questions from my patients asking, what are some things that they could snack on that are nutritious, fill them up for a while, and given the uncertain COVID times that we're in, some people really just want like things that are healthier since they're home. A lot of people are experiencing increased hunger or just kind of wanting to nosh. So this recipe focuses on ingredients that are high in fiber. Okay, so foods that are high in fiber tend to make you feel fuller for longer. And adding fiber into the mix is always great. It also could help with if you're experiencing any fatigue. So that tiredness, which is very common for people who've experienced cancer, having cancer-related fatigue. So really that's, really feeling tired emotionally, physically, and mentally. So today we're doing a high fiber loaf that's really super easy, quick, and ingredients that most people will have already in their homes. So let us know what to do, Jer.
Awesome. Yeah, so we were inspired by, I think, everyone's promptu baking, and there's a lot of banana breads going around. So we wanted to show you something, like Steph mentioned, a nice little snack item to get some extra, healthy ingredients in there, but also to make it very flexible. And I think when you're short on time, when you're short on energy, especially if you are maybe low on ingredients or you don't have everything that you need for a recipe, it's nice to have some substitution options available so that you can still make what you want to make. So this is a really simple, sort of sweet and savory loaf. And we're not even using flour. So even if you don't have access to flour at home, we can sort of substitute a few ingredients. If you do have flour, you can absolutely use it here, but instead we're going to be using some oats. These are just flaked oats. You can use large flake, you can use the quick oats, anything you can get. We're going to be pulsing this down into sort of a flour. So any flaked oats will work. I'm going to throw them into a food processor here. I'm going to bring you guys a little closer to our ingredients there. Awesome. So we're going to use a little bit of oats in there, and we're also 1.5 cups. And then we're going to use some nuts. Any nuts or seeds will work with this. We've made this recipe before with pumpkin seeds, and right now I've got walnuts. So we're going to use about 1/2 cup of any nuts or seeds, and that's going to go into the food processor as well.
And I really like the idea of adding nuts to any sort of mix, especially a loaf type of thing. Nuts give things like a really nice crunch, even though we are pulsing it, but it's also adding those healthy fats. So omega-3, for example, is a fatty acid that our body just does not make on its own. So we do need to get it through food. Really lots of research showing, the benefits in terms of heart health, reducing risk of inflammation as well. So, any chance you get to throw in some nuts into anything, it's always a great idea. It has healthy fats, it's giving protein, and you're adding more fiber to the mix.
Okay, so we have our oats, we have our nuts in there, and we're going to add a little bit of baking powder as well. About 2 teaspoons baking powder. That's just going to help with the leavening. And we're going to pulse this. We're going to grind this up until it's the consistency of sort of a coarse flour. You're not going to get a super fine mill from this, but you're going to get sort of a coarse flour. If you don't have a food processor, you can absolutely do this in a blender as well. It doesn't have so you're just gonna have to shake it around every once in a while. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's pretty fine. It's almost like if you were to buy like almond flour. It has a little bit of texture to it, but it's pretty fine and good to use. So this is going to be pretty much our base for the oat bread. So I'm going to put this into a bowl. And
so Jer, if you did have flour, would it just be like 2 cups or a cup and a half?
yeah, use about a cup of flour. You can use the same measure. You can still do about a cup and a half. You might just need a little more liquid at the end, and I'm going to show you what to look for because everyone's measurements are going to be a little different. Even your environment can affect the outcome. So if you need to add a little bit more water to the flour, then you might just have to adjust at the end. Remember that there's no gluten in this, right? So we can overwork it a little bit more without it getting really tough. Whereas if you're using flour, you're not going to want to do that at all. So you're just going to want to be a little more delicate with the mixture. Okay, so we have our dry ingredients done. Now for our wet ingredients, I'm going to do 2 eggs. There's 1. There's 2. We're going to put in a cup of puree. Now I had some squash, some frozen squash, so that's what I'm using. You can use pumpkin puree from a can. You can use applesauce. You can use your banana, your mashed banana. Any cup of vegetable or fruit puree will work in this recipe. So that's where you can sort of substitute depending on what you have available.
And again, this is a really great option to add any vegetable or fruit to your loaf. So I don't love the word sneaking that stuff in, but essentially that's what we're doing. And in addition, you're using these ingredients, correct me if I'm wrong, Jer, but it's to reduce the fat that you need to use in the ingredients, right? Like you don't have to use as much oil or butter with kind of the pureed squash, banana.
Yeah, I mean the fat is going to provide flavor for sure, but we don't have to rely on it for moisture because we're adding moisture from the squash. The eggs too are going to have some fat in it as well, right? So that's going to help to provide some moisture, some flavor, but getting that moisture elsewhere from like applesauce, banana, whatever it may be, means that you'll need less oil or fat again. Okay, so we have our eggs, we have our squash puree. To season this, to make it taste really good, I'm gonna add some ground ginger and some ground cinnamon in here because that's what I like and I'm making it, so you can put whatever you want at home. And I'm gonna add a little bit of maple syrup, about a 1/4 cup of maple syrup to this. Making a big loaf, it seems like a lot. In the end, it's not a lot because you're making a big batch. And I'm gonna add just a little pinch of salt as well. The salt is going to just enhance all the other flavors. And I'm not adding a lot, just a little bit to the mix. And then we'll blend this up. Again, you can do this by hand, but I've already dirtied this, so. Awesome.
Yeah, and I think that, using, like Jeremy said, it's already something that is out and you're using the blender or the Cuisinart, but just kind of thinking about ways to decrease the amount of time and effort that you want to put into your cooking, right? So using some sort of apparatus is obviously going to be less energy giving from then using like your hands or standing, etc. So kind of using the tools that you have in your kitchen to mix your ingredients and to cook with is always a great idea.
All right, so I added the wet ingredients to the dried ingredients, and I just want to fold it together until you have something that, I know it's going to be really hard to see, but something that is like a thick pancake batter. That's what we're looking for. Or if you've ever made cornbread before, it's that same consistency where it's going to have a little bit of that gritty texture, again, from the oats and the nuts, but it should still fall off of a spoon or a fork. Okay, so that's our mixture, good to go. And now we're ready to put it into a baking dish. You can use like muffin tins, you can make up little mini ones if you want, or if you want to make a bigger one, I'm going to use this cast iron pan. And you can definitely, you know, grease up the bottom of the cast iron pan. You can put the batter in here, bake it, beautiful. You know, most of the time that works and it doesn't stick to the bottom. You're not always so lucky. So like Steph mentioned, if you are experiencing fatigue, cleanup is a big part of that task of cooking that can sort of drain your energy, right? So here's a little cheat that we love to do in the kitchen. We're going to use some parchment paper and we're going to put it into the pan. So what I want to do with this parchment paper is just run it under some water and crunch it up in my hand. And then just shake off, kind of squeeze it and shake off any of that excess water. It's going to be a little wet, that's okay. Okay, so now you have this like little paper ball. Then we're going to unravel it. And we're going to tuck it into our pan or baking dish, whatever you're using. And then we're going to pour our batter right in. That way at the end, when it's done cooking, you can just pull this piece of parchment right out and the cleanup is going to be much easier. All right, so now when I'm pouring this in, we want it to be about like 3/4 of an inch high to an inch high max, depending on your baking sheet. This is going to rise a little bit as well. I don't want anything too thick. Okay. We're going to just spread that out.
Yeah. And I always suggest to people, like, you know, depending on what you're using this for, you might want to put it in those muffin tins. That way you have pre-portioned snacks. Though at the same time, if you want to pre-portion it yourself and kind of using a baking pan, you know, once it's cool, whatever, you just cut it up. You could put saran wrap around it and then put it into the fridge or freezer or wherever to store it, and then kind of having, you know, portion sizes for you that are there.
Awesome. So this is ready to go. It's going to go into the oven. I have it preheated at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. My oven is not convection. So if you are using convection at home, you can lower the temp a little bit, maybe go 350, 360 degrees. And we're going to cook that for about 25 to 30 minutes. And we know when it's done when we stick in a toothpick or a knife and it comes out nice and clean. So that's going to go in, and that's the end of the recipe. We'll see you in about 25 minutes. Okay, so that's been about 25 minutes and it smells really good. There you go. Beautiful oat bread. Some of that squash, some of that cinnamon. And then we're gonna test it. Again, just stick a knife or toothpick in there and just make sure that it's nice and dry, which that is, so it's good to go. And the convenient thing now, because I baked it in the parchment, is that all I have to do is lift that parchment out, and we're gonna put that in a little drying rack to dry there. And you can see from the bottom of the cast iron pan, it's clean. I mean, that's gonna take a little wipe and you're good to go, but you're not gonna be struggling scraping that thing or cleaning that thing, or even struggling to get the oat bread out. So nice little trick to save you some time, and delicious little baked product. And that's it. So thanks again.